of a young man sitting in Ennis who has bipolar disorder. The police arrested him because they say he violated their law and order. He refused to give the police his bus pass because he didn't think they'd give it back. And so when they tried to take it from him, he fought off their attack. He was charged with assault and resisting arrest, and they took him off to jail. It's a system that's set up to make sure the mentally ill will fail. The doctor said it looked like early onset bipolar disorder was the diagnosis, and certainly some of the statements he was making could easily qualify as psychosis. They locked him up in solitary, and he fought them tooth and nail. He felt like he was in a war, and there was no way that he could fail. He lashed out at them verbally. He called the guards rude names. They withheld his visitors list. They were just as capable of playing games. And so the deadly interactions had begun, no one identifying the symptoms of his illness. And meanwhile I was terrified that they would beat him into a deadly stillness. I phoned a psychologist at Ennis, expressing some of my concerns, until I realized he was playing games with me. I guess it's something that they learn. He acted like the guards would never hurt him, despite the ombudsman report, despite the image of the battered mentally ill inmate whose assault never made it into court, or the female inmate who gave birth alone, yelling for help to the guards who wouldn't respond, because they were so jaded by jail mentality that they only believed that they were being conned, or 18-year-old Ashley Smith, who they filmed dying for 30 minutes after she stopped breathing. I didn't want this boy's mother to be just another parent they left forever grieving. This boy belongs in a hospital, not in a jail cell all alone. The people in this institution don't care because to them he is unknown. But I have seen his gentler side and all the curiosity that he's expressed. But right now he's far too sick to understand the gravity of what he's expressed. These people don't care what happens to him. To them he's a faceless inmate. They see him as mouthy and rude, just another useless ingrate. And every door I knock on is just one more they slam in my face. No matter what I've tried, I can't seem to get him out of that place. And how much longer before he's destroyed, with his mental illness left untreated, locked up in solitary confinement until his spirit is defeated? To get him help, his mother would have to get power of attorney for his mental health, but that would cost her over $10,000, and she doesn't have that kind of wealth. And so we're just left waiting as he makes decisions he's not well enough to make, and his legal aid lawyer takes his instructions, even though they're not what she should take. He wants to go to trial because he thinks he can sue the police, that he can have his day in court and succeed in getting his release. But he'll not have a voice in court. There's no one there to listen. The only thing he'll win is a sentence in a prison, and only the legal aid lawyer can ask a psychiatrist to assess his fitness to stand trial. And we've told her he's not well, but she's not willing to go the extra mile. She said he can give her instructions, and that's all he needs to be considered fit. It's like saying he's mentally well because he still knows how to sit. I don't know who is more unfit, the mentally ill kid or the legal system. I keep trying to find someone who understands the situation, but there just isn't any wisdom. And I've warned the legal aid lawyer it will get publicly ugly if he's hurt. And I've made a note of all the players, and I'll drag all their names publicly through the dirt. But I don't want to wait until that happens and then not have to live with the regret, to have his image left in my mind and his story one more I can't forget. The psychiatrist finally got back to me, but she said she hasn't the power to intervene. She can only be called as a consultant if the lawyer wants him seen. And the lawyer considers him fit for trial, so she doesn't plan to pursue a psychiatric assessment. So he gets to languish alone in a prison cell, while his behaviors will encourage the guards to testament. I went to see him today, and all the time alone leaves him lost in thought. And all those painful memories from the past have surfaced, along with the sadness that they bought. He told me he cries a lot, and he doesn't care who sees his tears. And in his cell he yells a lot, and he doesn't care if others hear. And his mind races all over the place with a brilliance unexpected. And at times he seems so intelligent, his mental illness could barely be detective. It was like forced to face himself. He had gained a new perspective. He'd gone searching deep inside himself, as if he were his own detective. He said he'd been lying to himself, and being left alone forced him to face his truth. And I could swear as I sat there watching him, I saw him lose his youth. With nothing to numb him out, and all his emotions played out like a kaleidoscope of expressions, there was a rawness to his feelings that spoke to all the years of their repressions. Memories of painful places that caused his identity to be forever questioned. All the things he'd held inside that he'd never ever mentioned. All the sadness that he carried of the boy who'd lost his father, raised by a single mother too busy with her career to ever bother. Peers that had rejected him and left him the subject of his own rejection. All the thoughts running through his mind that came under his detection. As he struggled with a mind that forever just kept darting, gathering more and more information, but nothing stopped his sanity from departing. A mental illness deeply rooted that had begun to take control, bringing him into conflicts with others that eventually took their toll. A path predictably leading right up to his day in court, an accumulation of confusing messages that were far too difficult to sort. A mind surging with an energy that made him feel like Superman. So when you told him he needed medication, it was not something he could understand. The lure of mania, a mixture of brilliance and insanity, a sensitive understanding that transposed into a dangerous profanity. And at such a delicate age, he was barely at the threshold of becoming a man, with a boiling adolescence that didn't allow him to understand. Ever so dangerously balanced on the tip of the precipice of knowing, hopelessly ill-equipped by the breath of his unknowing, refusing to admit that his neurochemistry was misfiring, that for others the intensity of his dialogue was often far too tiring, that the only way he came across was both threatening and scary, that his only effect on others was to make them very wary, and yet screaming from inside with the understandings he had found, and occasionally admitting a truth that really could astound. But what was to become of him, touched by the fire of a madness? Would the end of his story leave us as the only holders of his sadness? The system has too many holes, and it's unlikely he won't fall through. And the reason why I know this is because I have a mental illness.